Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video we're about to break down exactly what you should be doing when rope dropping at Walt Disney World. Rope dropping in general has just become so popular over the years, very simply because, as the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm, and that is no different at the theme parks. We feel that getting up early and getting over to the parks as early as possible in the morning does save you a tremendous amount of time in the parks and avoid waiting those long lines later in the day. Rope dropping has gotten a bit more complicated over at Walt Disney World with the new release of early park admission for on-site Disney World guests, and that's why we're breaking down this video. We are going to break down exactly how or what you should be doing when rope dropping if you are staying at a Disney World hotel, and even if you're not staying at a Disney World hotel, we're going to try to break down all of it. So if you are in the process of planning a Disney vacation and you're thinking about rope dropping, you are going to want to be sure to stick around until the end of this video. Let's go get started. Thank you all so much for checking out this video. Like I said, we are about to break down exactly what you should be doing when rope dropping at Walt Disney World. Rope dropping is a little bit more complicated these days because Disney now has early park admission for on-site hotel guests. That's right. If you're staying in a Disney World hotel, you will get into the Disney World theme parks a half hour before the parks open for regular guests. Now, how does that tie into rope dropping? What if you're not staying in a Disney World hotel? Well, yes, that's exactly what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to try to give little tips and tricks and show you exactly what to do in both situations. And you'll see there is, an option for every family to still get the most out of their days in the park. Okay, but very simply, if you're just planning a Disney vacation and you don't even know what rope dropping is, but it just seems like something that you would be interested in, here is what we would define as rope dropping. Rope dropping is when a guest visits the Disney theme parks and they arrive much earlier than park opening and start scanning in and queuing in a waiting area to be among the first guests into the park. This term has actually come from when cast members would quite literally hold the rope out in the morning to hold crowds back from entering in the parks. And I worked at Walt Disney World as a cast member. We didn't hold the rope, but we would just pretty much put our hands out, and it works. But of course, looking past that, there's a strategy that comes into rope dropping to get on as many rides as possible, as early as possible, before a lot of guests get into the parks and wait times start to, get out of control. So that is the benefit of rope dropping. You are trying to get on as many rides as possible, or just the ride that you have your heart set on with as little wait time as possible. Okay, and so we're going to break down all 4 Disney World parks. Now, I will say from the beginning, our strategy for guests who are not staying at a Disney World hotel, in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, we are going to recommend that you upgrade and get the individual Lightning Lane. And I know there's a lot of controversy around the Disney Genie and the Lightning Lanes. I'm not benefiting from telling you, hey, go buy this additional add-on, right? Very simply, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make sure that you get the most value out of your day. And we have a guide, actually a blog, and we broke down exactly how much it costs to be in Walt Disney World per hour. And then upgrading to the Lightning Lane, how much time do you save on a numbers basis? If you're paying for a premium, are you getting a premium result from a saving time standpoint? And that's why we're recommending it. Okay, so now we're going to jump in for on-site hotel guests and off-site hotel guests. Here are some of the most popular tips and tricks that you will want to do when rope dropping. Now, make sure that you arrive early in the parking lot, and we would say at least an hour before park opening. And you'll see in certain situations, especially if you're staying at a Disney World hotel, you might want to get there a little bit earlier than the hour. You might want to do an hour 15, even an hour and a half, get crazy with it, but you want to get there early. And we would say Disney actually starts letting guests in 45 minutes before park opening, which is really 15 minutes before the early park admission, right? So you want to get there early because you have to go through security and you want to make sure you're some of the first guests in line. Tip and trick number 2, if you are rope dropping, make sure you're still planning ahead. Don't think that the low crowds is just going to solve all your problems, because again, you want to know exactly which rides you plan to go on before you even get to the park, so that you're not scrambling once you do get in, because same thing, everyone's kind of waiting together, especially in, before they let guests onto the rides. So there's a lot of people around you. You need to have a game plan going into which ride you're going to go on. Next, this is actually do not do this when rope dropping, and that is do not run. Cast members will absolutely stop you. Remember, you can walk as fast as you possibly want, but we want everyone to be safe, and running is not allowed. Okay, last but not least, going back to a game plan, make sure that you are not late, and we mean do not be late. Even 5 minutes can make all the difference. If the park opens at 8 and you arrive at 8:05, you are late. Like, there's no getting around that, and you'll see that it will have an impact on the wait times for the most popular rides. Okay, so now we're jumping over to Magic Kingdom. How do you rope drop Magic Kingdom? What do you want to take advantage of? What do you want to do when rope dropping Magic Kingdom? Now, we would say one of the most important tips to know specifically about the Magic Kingdom park is the transportation. It is the only park where you would still have to travel about a mile from the ticketing gates over to the theme park by either bus, walking trail, or of course monorail and ferry boat. And this is a big part of making sure you get there early, taking in that extra transportation. If you take the monorail, make sure you go up to the left side where guests sometimes don't realize it's actually a second line. And then of course the ferry boat can also be pretty slow in the mornings getting people into the park, so make sure you consider all of your options when trying to rope drop. Now for Magic Kingdom Park, and really for all the parks, for the most part, guests are going to be able to scan in about an hour before park opening. So this is a half hour before early park admission, like we said. Now, at that point, everyone's kind of kept on Main Street up to the Castle Hub, and no one's really allowed to make their way into the lands just yet. So with that being said, if you arrive an hour before, let's say the park opens, a half hour before early park admission, for my guests staying in an on-site Disney hotel, at that point, you do want to position yourself whichever land you plan to go to. So you want to make sure that if you're going to, let's say, Tomorrowland, you're not waiting over at Adventureland. Okay, and then for my off-site Disney hotel guest, if you did the right thing, you still can show up and get into the park an hour or before the park actually opens up to go onto rides. With that being said, you will hang out like on that Main Street area. You can still go grab breakfast, you could do a little shopping. The stores open up an hour before, so again, like we said, there is a benefit of being in the park that early, so take advantage of it. Okay, so now from a ride standpoint, right? If you are staying in an on-site Disney hotel, then we highly recommend that you take advantage of either Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Peter Pan's Flight. We just feel like these will save you the most time later on in the day. These are by far the most popular rides for guests who are looking to take advantage of rope dropping. So there's still going to be a little bit of a wait, but it won't be as bad as later in the day. Now for guests staying in an off-site Disney hotel, right, at that point, because we said that most guests are rope dropping specifically for those two rides, like if those were the two rides that you have your heart set on, what we would recommend to do is we would recommend to upgrade and get the individual lightning lane for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And again, the reason why we recommend specifically Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is because from a price per lightning lane standpoint, it costs guests essentially $12 per hour per person to be in a Disney World park. Now, what we try to do from there is we try to say, okay, if you're going to upgrade and pay this price, how much time are you saving? And on average, what we have found is you're going to save around 75 to 80 minutes by taking advantage of an individual lightning lane. And so for that reason, we would say, okay, you're getting more than an hour worth of savings for this price. So we see the value. And then on the flip side, we would say, go and get on some other rides. Specifically, we kind of recommend to go and do Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, and Pirates of the Caribbean, as soon as the park opens up, because you just got 3 major rides out of the way. And then you're doing the individual lightning lane, right, for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So like realistically, you're getting 4 rides out of the way within an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. And we would also say another very, very popular ride that comes to mind is Space Mountain. You could, of course, rope drop it. If you don't, though, for any reason, come back late at night, and it's typically a better wait time than in the middle of the day. Okay, so now that we got Magic Kingdom out of the way, how should you rope drop Epcot? Now, Epcot, first and foremost, one of the most popular questions we get is guests who are wondering about Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. And unfortunately, at this time, you still cannot rope drop Guardians of the Galaxy. Disney is running this ride completely through their virtual queue system. And if you're unsure what the virtual queue is, we have a blog post that will explain everything about specifically how you can go about getting on that ride. But jumping into some of the best things to do when rope dropping at Epcot, and of course, getting back to the transportation, understand the transportation options and try to, kind of give some thought to what is the best fit. Now, of course, Epcot and Hollywood Studios do have the Disney Skyliner, but outside of the Disney Skyliner, you do have the Friendship boats, which take guests from over at the Disney Boardwalk area. And then also you can walk from any of the Disney Boardwalk area hotels Other than that, any of the other hotels on Disney property, or if you're driving, you're going to take a bus. Now, why this is important to understand is if you're driving or taking a bus, you will be entering through the front of the park. Now, guests might not know that Epcot actually has 2 entrances. So if you take the Disney Skyliner, or if you're coming from any of the Disney Boardwalk hotels, you will be entering in the back of the park, and the back of the park is officially called International Gateway. So if you're planning to, let's say, rope drop a ride at the front of the park and you're entering through the back, like it could be legit a 25 to 30 minute walk, depending on how fast you walk, just to get to the front of the park to that ride. So this is important, especially when, you know, as you could see, that time is of the essence when rope dropping. So what we would say around that is either A, you'll come up with a game plan that kind of takes advantage of where you're coming into the park, or B, if you know you want rides in the front of the park, then make sure you're entering through the front of the park, or give yourself some extra time to just make it over to that side of the park. Okay, so now we're going to break down for guests who are entering through the main entrance of the park. Specifically, you will want to take advantage of rope dropping over at Test Track, Soarin', Living with the Land, Journey into Imagination with Figment, which is a good one. My team put that on there. And The Seas with Nemo and Friends. Moving on to the back of the park, if you are trying to rope drop and you're coming in from the back of Epcot, of course, you're going to want to take advantage of Remy's Ratatouille Adventure and then Frozen Ever After. We would say that the most rides that guests typically try to rope drop are going to be Test Track, Frozen Ever After, and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. So with that being said, specifically, if you know you're going on, let's say you want to do Test Track, come in from the front of the park. If you're looking to do Frozen or Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, try to make your way in from the back of the park. Specifically for Remy's, Frozen is kind of like right in the middle, but from a timing standpoint, we actually do believe it is still a little bit closer to the back entrance of the park. Okay, so now for guests staying at an on-site Disney World hotel, we would say, go crazy. Whichever ride you have your heart set on the most, go and tackle that ride. Now, you'll see that for guests not staying at an on-site Disney World hotel, this is actually the only park that we're not recommending, or you really can't take advantage of upgrading and using that individual Lightning Lane. And the main reason is because it is for Guardians of the Galaxy. So we just don't see the value there. What we would say is there's not as many rides at Epcot. There's still value in getting to the parks early, rope dropping. And even after, the early half hour is up, we still think there's value and you could still go and get on some relatively short lines. What we would recommend is hit either Frozen or Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, or another way to get, let's say 3 rides out of the way as early as possible is doing Soarin', The Seas with Nemo and Friends, and Journey into Imagination, like we said. But I would also say that Soarin', the wait time is kind of pulled back a little bit. There's definitely still value there, but you're going to end up waiting a little bit longer for some of the other rides later in the day, but you'll still get through everything. I mean, Epcot is still a very, very tackable park. So those are just some of the best things to do. Okay, I think we are about halfway through the Walt Disney World theme parks, and I just wanted to take a quick minute to thank you again so much for checking out this video. And if you are finding this video helpful and you do want similar videos like this, just be sure to subscribe to our channel, as we do have a lot more similar videos coming out in the coming weeks. But back to the planning. Okay, so let's move on to the next park, and that is Animal Kingdom. What should you be doing when rope dropping at Animal Kingdom? And you'll see this park is probably the one park where everyone is really going to the same ride. So with that being said, there is certain things that you might be able to do a little bit differently, but let's talk about the main ride everyone's going to, and that is Avatar Flight of Passage. Now, this is probably the one park that we would say for guests who are staying at an on-site Disney World hotel, you really need to be some of the first guests that they let into the park. We would say make sure that you're waiting outside before they even open this park up to allow guests even into the park. For guests who are not staying at a Disney World hotel, it's the same thing. You'll be able to go into the park, with everyone else. You'll have to wait in that main hub there where the Tree of Life is. With that being said, right, for on-site hotel guests, if you're going to Flight of Passage, you're going straight there, and you're probably still going to wait a little bit. On the flip side, if you're staying at a non-Disney hotel, I would recommend to do the Lightning Lane here. And this by far is one of those rides that I would say I would really recommend to do the Lightning Lane. I've roped dropped Avatar, and I've waited 3 hours. And that is because we didn't show up exactly when we were supposed to. We still showed up before they opened the park, but we were kind of towards the back. It was around the holidays as well, but this ride is really hit or miss. So if you're not staying at a Disney World hotel, I definitely recommend to upgrading to the Lightning Lane. we have found that on average, you'll pretty much save around 2 hours. And depending on where the Lightning Lane price is, we feel like it is worth it. And we've done averages right around like $16 to $17 for that individual Lightning Lane. On the flip side, let's say that you're there early at that point and go. Sometimes the wait time can be maybe only like an hour and a half. If it's honestly anything below 2 hours, in my opinion, it's worth it. So I think for this one, you'll be okay no matter what you do, but we would still recommend upgrade to the Lightning Lane. I would even say upgrade to the Lightning Lane if you're staying at a Disney hotel, just because I do think it will save you time in the parks. And then for those guests who, let's say, do upgrade to the Lightning Lane, you can go and tackle the Safari, which one is Avatar longest wait time, 2 is the Safari. And then the other cool thing about rope dropping the Safari is that is typically when animals are most active at the parks. So it can be a really, really cool experience for your family. Okay, and then I know I rambled there a little bit. Just to recap, for a guest staying in an on-site Disney hotel with early park admission, you're going to want to do Flight of Passage first and then hop over to Na'vi River second. For guests who are possibly not staying in a Disney hotel or upgrading to the Lightning Lane, what we would recommend to do is to do the Safari, Expedition Everest, and then Dinosaur in that order. And then again, hopefully, it might be tough to get through this in, let's say the hour that we had suggested previously over at Magic Kingdom. But for these 3 rides, you could probably tackle them in the first hour and a half to 2 hours. And again, on average, when you're getting 3 major rides out of the way, first 2 hours, your day is looking that much better. Okay, so over to Hollywood Studios, and we actually did a complete video on if you should rope drop a specific ride at Hollywood Studios, and that is if you should rope drop Rise of the Resistance. But you'll see it's going to be a similar strategy for guests who are looking to rope drop Hollywood Studios. And of course, like we said, from a transportation standpoint, Hollywood Studios does also have the Disney Skyliner for guests to get over to the park. They do have the friendship boats. We feel like the easiest and the quickest is still going to be the buses and parking over at Studios. Now jumping into the ride. So we still feel like the most popular ride to rope drop is Rise of the Resistance. And this is another one of those rides that we would say make sure that you're arriving early and you're inside the park before it officially opens up for early entry or for offsite guests. Just make sure that you're there before the park officially opens up so you're some of the first guests into the park. Now, if you are a Disney on-site hotel guest and you did arrive some of the first families in the park, right, you want to go and you want to tackle Rise of the Resistance just because that's going to help you save the most time later on in your day. And you could actually go and watch that video. You'll see that we kind of looked at the numbers and we said, hey, even if you're not a Disney World on-site guest, if you still just go and hop on the line for Rise of the Resistance as soon as you can for offsite guests, we still saw a savings of like 20 minutes, throughout the day. So you could definitely do that. With that being said, this is the other ride that we are recommending upgrade and get the Lightning Lane if you can. From a time standpoint, we just still see the savings. We think on average, you'll see a savings of around 98 minutes, and the individual Lightning Lane should be, on average, at the time of this recording anyway, around $18 to $19. So we just felt like it is worth it because you will save a significant amount of time. Another really, really popular ride that you can consider is going over to Toy Story for Slinky Dog Dash. Now, another in the ride in the middle is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So now which ride should guests try to tackle? Well, if you are an on-site Disney World Hotel guest, yes, go and try to tackle Rise of the Resistance. Once you hop off, you can head over to Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, and get the Star Wars section of the park out for early entry. If you're not staying in a Disney World hotel, another great option, like we said, would be to go over to Toy Story Land, where you can go on Slinky Dog Dash and then Toy Story Mania. Or if you're more into the thrill ride, you can go over to the Sunset Boulevard section of the park and do Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. And the truth is, this is like in a crazy way, you're kind of fading all of the long lines in the early mornings because most guests very simply are not going to that side of the park for rope dropping anymore. So these are 2 major rides. Same thing, like we said, if you get these 2 out of the way as early as possible in the morning, your day will be so much better and set up so much better for success. Okay, so that is the video, everyone. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into rope dropping over at Walt Disney World. There's a lot more moving parts now with the introduction of early park admission for on-site hotel guests. And I can't forget to mention friendly neighbor hotel guests do also get early park admission over at Disney World. But with that being said, as you can see, there's still ways to game the system. There's still ways to get the most out of your day in the parks, no matter which hotel you stay at, or no matter if you're a Florida local. Even my Florida locals, I hope you found this video helpful. That was really the main point. We wanted to just try to show you like, hey, this is how you get on as many rides as possible. This is how you tackle the most popular rides. And if you are in the process of planning a Disney World vacation, just be sure to go check out our website, theparkprodigy.com. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.